again, but it's the only way.
Good evening, welcome to NUFC Matters. I hope you are all fitting well and surviving these storms if you're in the UK. It is an absolute nightmare out there where I live. Things getting blown all over. And Steve probably made it in record time there, back from the airport, mate, with the wind behind you.
I did, tailwind, amazing.
Well, as I say, I hope everyone's safe out there and don't get blown away. Don't take any unnecessary risks and just stay in. Don't be like these idiots on Good Morning Britain, etc., who, when they're told not to go down to the seaside, they're walking down there, standing as close to the waves as possible. Absolutely mental. But I do want to just thank everybody for all the kind words on social media and a lot of the messages I've had, text messages, etc., about me mum. I'm afraid it's not good news. My mum is in the high dependency unit. She's on critical care and she won't be coming out of there. So, it's a matter of time. I've been to see her again today. And I just count myself very lucky in a lot of ways that I've been able to speak to my mum about things that we wanted to speak to her about and thank her. So thanks for the kind words. I will update you as and when. And yes, it's quite an emotional week for me. But we continue, as all good professionals do. The show must go on, and I couldn't think of anywhere better than being with my two mates on a Friday night, chewing the fat about Newcastle United and spending time with everybody in the chat. I'm not going to West Ham tomorrow. I'm pleased to say I've sold my ticket on a cost price to somebody else. It's only right that I'm here with a family, so I'm going to avoid the game tomorrow and avoid all the nightmare situations that people are going to come across on the trains. But before we start talking about football, let's talk about stadiums. And Mitch, you put something out there today. You generated a little bit of interest. Tom is straight in, as he usually is, it has to be said, first in the chat. What's your thoughts on the new Newcastle United Community Stadium and Training Ground concept design that has been unveiled? So, yeah, let's talk about that first, Mitch. We've mentioned it a little bit on the show before. Talked about plans being suggested, thrown around. You've put something out there today. Tell us about it.
Yeah, well, the one I put out is, if you remember, there was a design or a plan for the stadium put out a little while ago that turned the pitch through 90 degrees and had a load of other things associated with it. And that was actually done by an architect friend and patient of mine here in the Middle East, a guy called John Henry. Interesting guy, very innovative architect. If you've seen the big wheel, the Al Ain in Dubai, the eye, that was his. So that's the kind of thing he does. He does very innovative, high-end architectural design. He's a big football fan. So what do you get when you get an architect who's a big football fan? A bit like when you get a dentist who's a big football fan. We started digging into football. We started trying to attach football to anything that would do. He's a Man U fan. I don't hold that against him. He's a proper Man U fan. And he was fascinated when we had a chat about expanding the stadium because he didn't understand the architectural challenges of things like Leisure Terrace and the footprint of the ground and the metro and things like that. And that was where his idea to turn the pitch through 90 degrees was. But what he also didn't understand was we're not like Tottenham. We don't have Wembley on the doorstep that we can go and use for a year while they build the new things. And he'd obviously gone away off his own bat, by the way. I wasn't expecting this when I got it. I hadn't even had a conversation. I just got an email through saying, can you send these to the powers that be, please, mate? And I shared it with you two first, and then Stu, with this new concept where effectively it keeps the orientation. It does move the pitch and raise the pitch a little bit. And I was trying to get stuff out, but obviously what he sent was a PDF document, quite a weighty one. And I initially asked Mark Douglas if he wanted to see it because he was really interested in the original concept with John, and he had a conversation with John. And so I'm quite sure he's going to have another conversation with John when he's back off his paternity leave and do some articles about it. But equally, there was so much clamour to see what the design was. I managed to just screenshot part of the plan that shows his idea in a little bit more expanded way. So I didn't have to sit and explain everything quite thoroughly. And his concept is also within the boundaries of potentially using the stadium while the building's happening, albeit at a reduced capacity. Which I think probably the challenge is always, I mean, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's be realistic. we need to focus on staying up. We need to focus on a lot of other infrastructure things like that training ground, which we'll come to in a bit. We need to focus on a lot more things than the ground at the moment. However, as we've seen today, Burnley have advertised for a strategic manager because the new owners obviously bought the club, thought they were going to make a mint, and they're in hock and they're now thinking what the hell they would do next. There should be some strategy with any move you make with a football club. And if we're seriously talking about, like the owners have said openly, we want to be challenging for the Champions League, we want to be challenging for the title, we're inevitably going to talk about, do we have enough capacity? What are we going to do on a match day? And the clamour is to stay at St James's Park, and I get that. And I think the owners get that. I think all of the owners get that, including PIF, that the history and being the absolute heart of the city in every way you can be is key to keeping the support and the fan base and a lot more. And I think they've got to look at how you can think outside of the box about solving these problems. And the one thing John Henry's got a reputation of in the Middle East is thinking outside of the box. And that's why he goes away and does stuff off his own bat and sends it to me and says, what do you think? And so I was glad I was able to share it in some way. I'm sure Mark will expand on that when he eventually does an article on it. I'm damn sure he'll speak to John because he's got a relationship with John from the last one that was put out. And then it's interesting today that plan for the community stadium and training ground appears because there's clever architects in all parts of the world, and some of them are in the northeast of England. And of course, they'd want to work with Newcastle United. So everybody seems to be pitching, and everybody seems to be wanting to get in on the act. And yet, that to me just looks like another pitch at the end of the day. And a very nice one at that. We've got to talk about training grounds. We've got to talk about what do we do with complexes in the academy and a lot more. And so getting ideas on that in now should be an important part of the strategy of growing the club into the future because that's what the new owners want to do. And so we don't want to be sat in 4 years' time advertising like Burnley are for a strategy manager because the strategy's gone tits up or it hasn't even been there in the first place. And so these conversations are ones I believe need to be happening in the background. And that's why instead of just passing it on, like I know you did, Steve, thank you very much for passing that on to the powers that be, as John puts it, then to be able to have an open discussion about it, because we've got to get our fans' heads around all of this as well. Like, again, I've seen in the chat there discussions about naming rights. Naming rights is not a problem if it's done right. Ashley did it wrong. He did it as a two fingers in the face and an FU. He didn't do it with the right intention. He didn't do it. He did it because he wanted to showcase his own brand, let's be honest. And the way it was done with crowbars at 7 a.m. when he hadn't even told the press officer that they were coming. And even Derek Lambias went late about that in a meeting with me and Steve. That's not the way to do it. But if you pull the fans aside and say, look, we want to keep St James's Park, we'll always refer to it as St James's Park, but we can make X amount a year from selling some sort of naming rights, that will hopefully also incorporate St James's Park in there. Because any clever sponsor will do that. Any clever sponsor will do that. And if you've got a sponsor that doesn't want to do that, that's probably not the right sponsor for Newcastle United. And so these kind of discussions need to be had to get people's heads around it and heads around all the ideas that are going to come. Because we're still even just getting my heads around having hundreds of new fans in Saudi Arabia who used to support other clubs, because that's the way support in Saudi Arabia works, and so and it's difficult. It's difficult for our fan base. There's so many different challenges that I would like to think people in positions like we are can help ease the fan base through, but also we can then help project things into the future and start certain discussions that I think absolutely need to be had now before it actually happens. So it's not a surprise. It's not a bomb. It's not something that's going to start to open some of the fissures in the fan base up again. We don't need that shit anymore. We need to be looking how we can work all together to go towards the one aim, and that one aim is being the very best Newcastle United can be. And we've got all the opportunities in place to do that. And that includes everything from our ground to our training facilities to an academy to the connection to the community and so much more.
Yeah, look, divided fan bases are an absolute nightmare, and we know all about them. Just watch our Newcastle United series that we've got on the channel. We tell you all about it on there. And the truth hurt, I think, with a lot of people. You'd think with a takeover would be more united, but the amount of garbage that I've seen flying around on Twitter this week, again, some of it directed at me. I just use the block button these days, but some of it again targeting Holly, our dad. Other people connected to the channel, anyone who was speaking up and saying anything in defense was then attacked by a whole host of faceless accounts. Honestly, Twitter should just do something about it. And if Twitter can't do something about it, then maybe it's time for people to start reporting these people to Northumbria Police, because honestly, these people are just making some people's lives a misery. The thing they're getting at me, I very rarely see it. I've got 42,000 followers on Twitter. I've gained an extra 100 this week. Purely from people thinking, well, if they're saying this, he must be a good lad. I gain followers off the back of the criticism I get. It's ludicrous. And divided fan bases are something we've had to live with, and it doesn't look as if it's getting any better. It looks as if it's getting worse. And for me, I just hope there is an end to it at some point. And if that means that it's the tightening up of social media, and nobody can have a faceless account, then so be it. I feel really sorry for those who are completely innocent in all of this, who maybe don't want to put their face on or want to run a business through Twitter or whatever. But there needs to be some way, shape, or form of doing it, because honestly, I saw somebody again who has a history with having depression and mental illness, and talking openly on the social media platform about taking their own life this week, and the trolls targeted that person to the point where the person was, again, putting a shout out for help on social media that they were going to kill themselves. This is ludicrous. This is football. This is Newcastle United. And if you don't like somebody, if you don't like me, then block the person and move on. It's ludicrous that it's coming to this. And it's really made me angry this week, because I'm dealing with a lot of personal pressure at home. And the last thing I need is to see good friends, good people, having to, go out and try and defend themselves or defend others and getting the same garbage off people. It's ludicrous. It really, really is. It's come to the point now where I hope there is some kind of interaction or involvement by the police. And honestly, folks, I know there's a couple of people in the chat who do this all the time. The report, I'm not going to name names. There's somebody out there who reports and reports and reports. There's somebody else out there who's now started to link Northumbria Police to it. I'd suggest you all do it. I suggest you all do it, because you'll see it all the time. Those of you who are on Twitter, and you'll have seen Steve targeted, you've seen Mitch targeted, you've seen me targeted. For what? For being normal, for speaking our minds, for talking about Newcastle United, the club we love, for daring to provide an alternative entertainment on this platform. It's absolutely ludicrous. It really is. And when you think about it, we're possibly going into a World War III situation with the Ukraine, looking at with Russia on the borders, looking to take over. We're still dealing with a pandemic and all the aftermath of that. We're dealing with our own personal problems at home. And yet some people find it acceptable to sit at home and make fake accounts and just talk utter garbage about people and troll people. It really disgusts me. It really annoys me. And believe you me, the lads will tell you, the two lads sitting in front of you, when I start getting annoyed, I start taking action, and I'll do it properly. And believe you me, this will end. And it won't end well for those people who are doing this. They'll end up behind bars. That's what will happen. I will get to the bottom of it, and I'll defend anybody out there who has been attacked and who has been hammered and who has been bullied, because that's what it is. And you know what I did at the school bully? I punched him in the face. And that's, unfortunately, the only way you deal with bullies. You deal with them in one way and one way only. You punish them, and you punish them properly. And the way you do it as an adult, you pick up the phone and you go and report them to the authorities. And that's what you're going to have to do. So anyone who sees anyone bullying anybody on the NUFC timeline, I suggest you report them to Northumbria Police, at them at Northumbria Police on Twitter, and get these people dealt with properly. Because these people need to see the cold hand of the law. They need putting behind bars, and they need, serious help with their mental health. Rant over. Okay, Steve, fans forum. It ties in nicely with what Mitch is saying. He's saying fans to be consulted about something like this. Do you think we'll see the reigniting of something like that? Because that would be vital, wouldn't it? We can't just go and talk to the trust because they're an elected body. They only represent a certain percentage of supporters. Not everyone is connected to the trust. So how do you do that? Do we start that up? Do we look for an alternative? What do we do?
Oh, good question, Steve. I mean, the one thing we can say is that the current owners or the new owners of the club and the people who are looking after it on behalf of the whole consortium are doing a marvelous job in communicating. And I think from my perspective, that can only be a positive. The fact that we've got owners now who are listening, they're in dialogue with the supporters through the media. They seem to be embracing social media themselves, trying to be positive. So that's a good start. The fact that we've got 40,000 season ticket holders. I think every season ticket holder probably has a say or has an opportunity or should have an opportunity to have a say in what happens to Newcastle United. And there are plenty of people there who would love to be season ticket holders but are not. Hence the reason why we've got the clamour for a 75,000 seater stadium that Mitch has just been talking about. There's a perfect example. Everybody, let's face it, we're a football club where everybody has opinions. In fact, that's what the beauty sometimes is of being in the pub after a game and listening to everybody's opinions of how what's gone on in the game itself, what's happened beforehand, what's been happening during the week, where the club's heading, which player should be playing, who should be captain, and whether we should have a new ground, whether we should move from St James's Park to whether it's on the quayside somewhere where the arena used to be, or whether it's up where Sir John Hall originally bought a plot of land at Worthington, or whether it's Kenton Bar, or you name it. We've all got opinions on it, and that's what's great. But there's definitely a need for a dialogue. Is there a need for a supporters club? The supporters trust is a slightly different animal. It can be quite political. I honestly don't know, Steve. I'm sure that there are greater minds than ours that are putting their heads above the parapet or are thinking about it in terms of how this communication can happen. But we've got to remember that it's early days for the owners. It's early days for Mirdad and Amanda. They're just basically getting their feet under the table. And what we do need as a fan base is to be helping them along. Not forcing issues with them, not prompting them with problems that either don't exist or may exist. We've just got to take it nice and easy and enjoy this. Well, first of all, enjoy the unbeaten run that we're on, because we've never had one of those for a number of years. That's amazing. 3 wins in a row and a couple of draws. Dear me, what's going on there? And I'm sure we're going to get into talking about that as well. But it's patience, I think, that we need. And an understanding of what the fan base want before we get into all sorts of dialogues with the owners about where this club is heading. Because again, they need to know where we think this football club is heading, and eventually we're going to have to start hearing from them on what their plans really are. And that's when dialogue turns into conflict with Newcastle United, or it has done in the past, and we need to be avoiding that at all costs.
Yeah, we do, 100%. It's interesting. I had a pre-record this morning with Mick Lowe's. I want to have a day off tomorrow for obvious reasons. But the pre-record I did with Mick Lowe's, which you can catch at 11 o'clock in the morning, we're talking about the stadium. And this was prior to Mitch's tweet. And I said my priority at the moment would be training facilities. Next step is training facilities. Inject the money into building a new training state-of-the-art facility, because if we've got any hope of attracting the next level player, then Eddie Howe, I'm sure, and the money which players are going to be paid and the quality of players that were signed already in that first transfer window is going to attract some players and show them that there's a realistic chance of getting into European football, not just for one season, but on regular seasons. But what will also, attract players is good, strong training facilities where, players can, everything Mitch, the modern day footballer can do. He can go in, he can relax in there, he trains there, he eats there collectively with the team. If he's injured, then he's still part of it. He's getting his medical treatment, state of the art, indoor facilities, outdoor facilities. That's what you want. And that's, of course, what the man from Brighton, we would imagine, will have, a big part to play in. Dan Ashworth.
And why we're also linked with our academy manager now.
Yeah, I saw that today. Yeah, Brighton must love us. Don't go on a holiday to Brighton this summer, Newcastle fans. You'll not be welcome.
There's an absolute thing about Ashworth, and it's the word Steve and I have used in documents that were passed to people over the last 5 or 6 years, and words we've used in discussions with other people interested in Newcastle United Football Club. The DNA of the club needs to be root and branch from top to bottom within the academy, within everything else that we do below the first team structure. This season, I think, did we go through 323 managers in the first 4 months of the season this season? That tells you everything that's wrong about everything below the first team at Newcastle United. And that kind of thing has to stop. We have to have people in place who can set that DNA, get it running, get the right people in place for the long term, and look at development below the first team as well. And so we need this kind of structure to be well thought through. This infrastructure is the important part right now for me. The ground can wait. We've got a big enough ground. It makes enough noise. It's intimidating enough. It's where we want it to be. Yes, I believe we'll have to start to have the discussions about the ground now because of strategy and planning. But that should be part of the longer term plan. The short term plan is to put the infrastructure right. We've banged on about infrastructure for how long? It's been a mess for a long time. We've lost crops of young players going to Middlesbrough, going to Sunderland, seeping out of the youth structure. We need to turn that around, and the people that will turn that around are hopefully the people that Dan Ashworth is ready to appoint. The facilities will come with the right design. Like I say, that one that's been touted around today is obviously a pitch from a local architect. It's, and that's fine, because my mate John Henry's pitching. Of course he's pitching. He would love that on his CV. I'm quite sure of that.
But I would say with that pitch, though, with that plan, it's all well and good somebody putting a pitch together like the one that you're talking about, but where was it going to be? Was it in the middle of Northumberland? Was it in Gateshead? I mean, looking at the size of it, you're looking at it and you're thinking, yeah, well, that looks fantastic. It's not in the middle of a desert. Yeah, if it was here, yes, they'd just pick a big bloody empty space and do it there. We don't have that luxury in Newcastle. I think the biggest thing for me is the Reuben-owned land that's in and around the racecourse. That to me will be the ideal place for to put it. And obviously there's a connection to Newcastle United already there. It makes sense. We need to be looking for sensible decisions. And that to me makes sense. It makes sense logistically from where it is as well. Easy access to the ground, easy access to the town centre, easy access to the areas where the players normally live, easy access to the airport if you want to bring anybody in. To me, that is a really, really, really good site. But again, that'll come at a cost to the club, even though some of the owners already own it. It still has to be paid for fairly, and it's prime land. It's prime NE land. Let's be honest about it. So we'll have to really think this through. The days of training at Durham are long, long gone. Where we've got what we've got at the minute is a hodgepodge and a mishmash, and it isn't working. And it hasn't worked for a number of years, and it needs to be changed. We need to be getting there, and so strategically and logistically, that's where the money needs to go first for me. We need to be sorting these logistical things out. There's so many things like that below the first team structure that need addressed badly.
and far more priority than the ground itself, even though I still believe those ground discussions need to be being started sooner rather than later, because if it fits in with their vision and their plan that we want to be doing X by X date, then, well, is St James's Park then fit for purpose at that point? And that's the challenge that a lot of the bigger European clubs have had, but also why a lot of the bigger European clubs, because they've been trying to address that point, they've got themselves into so much financial hock. And so there's your balance, there's your difficulty. And again, naming rights compared to Barcelona doing what they're doing with, say, Spotify, where do you pitch what is a reasonable fee? Where do you pitch what is an agreeable amount? It's all subjective, and I think none of it would stand up if it was pressurized in court. And so it's very, very, very complex. I think still controversial. I think that because of the thoughts and the obvious language coming out of the big six as there were this week about them, we touched on this on Wednesday night about the big six wanting to have qualification for Europe, not necessarily on sport and merit. What? Because you're scared that somebody's going to overtake you. This is all ridiculous. And there's so many things have come out over the last week about the big six, about football finance and other clubs, and about sports washing as well. There's been such an absolute mess this week about so many things, but it was very revealing about how people in football are thinking at the moment. And of course, we're going to be caught in the crossfire of all that. Why? Because we're such an easy target at the minute. It's so lazy. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it is interesting. One that came up in the chat there, Steve, which I've learned how to do it now. Chris has told us you can star them. You can star them. Take something when other people tell you what you're doing on your own system. But yeah, the truth finally came out that Ashley paid nothing for his awful Sports Direct advertising for the last 3 seasons, says Barry Hogan. I don't think that was much of a surprise, but I mean, when you see it in black and white, wow, what a bloke.
Exactly, and that was the last 3 seasons to add to the previous 11 seasons, so in effect 14 seasons. And I remember it, and I know that there's supposed to be a court case that Amanda and me had are embroiled in with Ashley, and that topic's been mentioned in I think it was the Daily Mail just a couple of days ago. And you know what? The very fact that he's shouted his mouth off, and then we have the evidence there that he didn't pay anything, and yet he turned up at a fans forum, or at least Charlie turned up at a fans forum in 2018 and said, "Mate, because let's face it, fans have been going on and on and on about the adverts for long enough, or the advertising, and they said, Mike is now going to pay, and Sports Direct are now going to be paying what was required of them, and if the books then turn around and say, well, they didn't actually pay it, is exactly what it sounds like, then surely the Amanda and Meadows must be sitting there going, this bloke's calling us. He's a born liar. Where does that stand you in court, mate? It just makes you look stupid. And I can imagine their attorneys going, we can fight them just on that alone. The very fact that the man comes out and makes statements and publicizes stuff and doesn't follow it through. But I think it was 2018 when he turned around and said they were going to pay. Sports Direct were going to pay, because remember, Sports Direct were a limited or a private company. They were floated on the stock market, so basically a public company. Floated on the stock market, and it should have been in their accounts exactly how much was being paid, and it was never ever disclosed. So there's lots and lots of areas around it that we knew where that we weren't getting just desserts for. And it just adds to the whole sort of ball that kept on rolling and rolling down the hill, that proved that Mike Ashley and the rest of his cohorts couldn't be trusted. There will be people still at the football club with a mindset and a mentality that they can pull the wool over our eyes as football fans, because those people were working with Mike Ashley and no doubt still have the same mindset and the same mentality. because it had been drummed into them for the last 14 years working for Mike, that this is how you treat supporters. And when Mitch goes on about clearing the decks and sorting out the football club and sorting out the aspects of the training ground and such like, and getting new sponsorship in, but there are other aspects of that football club that need to be cleaned out, in my opinion, if PIF and the rest of the consortium are going to be able to run that football club correctly. Because, as I said, there will be people in there, and we're aware of it anyway. We're aware of certain quarters because of the attitude situations that have occurred this year already in the last few months that I'm aware of, where the manner in which those people were conducting themselves within the football club to issues that were brought to their attention showed that, in my eyes, they weren't suitable to be working at Newcastle United, because they certainly, even in the positions they had, were not doing the job correctly on behalf of the supporters of that football club.
Yeah, okay. As you know, we always have plenty of things to entertain you on a Friday night, have some regular slots, and here's the first one. The day I met, and I'm sure we've got a tweet of the week where somebody who hated the music says it's grown on them now. But lots of people seem to like that music now. I'm glad I never got rid of it. Well done, Neil Jackson from Media Arts. Geordie Girl is somebody who we know on Twitter, and she has sent us in loads of photos this week. These are the first two, though, for this particular section. Ignore the dog. That was in Bellamy's bar for a charity match. But the picture below is, of course, her and Peter Beardsley. And then we've got a lovely one of her and her mum just before the match. But the relevance of that is that the one above is her mum with Callum Wilson. So nice to see our current incumbent of the number 9 featuring in the day I met. If you've got any of those photographs of you with Newcastle United players or managers or ex-players or ex-managers, ping them to me on social media and we'll do our best to get them on screen. Cue the music. Now, we always like to raise money for the food bank at NUFC Matters, and as always, we have a T-shirt up for grabs. Well, you've got about 45 minutes to bid for this one, the Trippier T-shirt, which is pinned at the top of my Twitter profile at Steve Wraith. And now this one is currently at 31 quid, so you'll be able to pick this one up quite easily. £31. David Billy Gibson, Frosted 16. On Twitter is the current high bid, £31. You've got about 45 minutes to get your bids in for that one. And then we will be putting up a new T-shirt tonight. Don't forget, I'm also doing the world record fire walk, Saturday the 14th of May. This is to try and get a world record. He's aiming for 1,500 people. Obviously, you can join my team by going to the website, www.wrfirewalk.co.uk. And you can join Team Wraith by entering the code NUFCM at checkout. I think there's already a few of the NUFC Matters team coming along. I think John from QTech is signed up. I think Holly's signed up. I think her dad's signed up. I think there's a few others contemplating it. But come along, join me, raise some money for charity. It would be great to see as many of you there as possible. Saturday the 14th of May, Newcastle that weekend. Play on the Sunday, so get yourself along and give us some support, and let's hope we can break the world record. Okay, lads. Obviously, we're looking at the other topics of conversation which have been brought up in the chat, and this one was interesting from Sir Monkey Suit. He says a lot of talk about our right back situation for tomorrow. Could this not be an opportunity to start Bruno to shore up our defensive work? I feel like we're waiting for us to lose to bring him in. Now, that's an interesting point. I mean, again, covered this with Mick Lowes on the show tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock. We talked about it briefly on Geordie's here, Geordie's there, Mitch, but, you know, a lot of people chomping at the bit to get Bruno in the team. But the point I made is that the midfield's not doing anything wrong.
And I'll reiterate what I said on Wednesday night. 2 factors. One, who do you drop out that midfield on the basis of what we've seen over the last 3 games? I don't think you can. Willock's absolutely worked his bollocks off and not got, I think, enough credit for it at all. Shelvey, the thing I've liked about Shelvey is I think in 2 of those games, 6 months ago, he'd had a red card. The minute he got the booking, he'd have done something stupid, but actually the booking made him think. And he looked far more up for it after he picked up the yellow, ironically. And Joe Linton at the minute I don't think you can replace him. He's putting that kind of shift in every week. Yeah, he's a different beast when he gets in the box, but box to box, you can't take that out. He's become, you know, this very difficult and hard to break down midfield character. So who do you drop? To include Bruno might mean a change of formation. Why? And then the next thing I believe we've got to do as a fan base is with Trippier and Mankillo out, Target's a shoe in at left back. We've got a Swedish international right full back who's only actually played a handful of games for us at right full back in a back four rather. He's played right wing back in a back 5. He's played right sided centre back in a back 5. He's played right-sided centre-back in a back 4, and he's not a centre-back, he's a right full-back. We get behind absolutely everybody else in the team, even people that we've had negative things to say about. Joe Linton, for example. It's time to get behind Kraft. I can't see a reason why Howe would change his formation with who's available and a Swedish international right full-back able to drop into right-back, and you leave the midfield alone, because how can you justify to any of those 3, right, I'm dropping you today, just because we've spent 30-odd million on Bruno? Bruno will get his chance, and when he does get his chance, I very much doubt he'll be out of the team again. And I don't think it's a bad thing to be introducing somebody to Premier League football who hasn't played Premier League football. We've had a number of players from France over the last, 20 years? And some sink and some swim. So for every David Ginola, you've got a David Guivache. If for every Laurent Robert, you've got a who was that striker that was bloody awful as well? Riviere. You know, so for everyone you can counteract with somebody else. They come into the team and they might prosper in the Premier League and look amazing, but they might also sink at the same time. And that's the last thing we need for a record signing to be coming into the team going, well, not a record signing, but for a big signing coming into the team and then looking poor and then people calling for him to be dropped again. We don't need that shit. And I don't see a reason for how, and I can't, for me, see how doing that, because he seems to be settled on a formation and a structure. And then the other question you've got with the back 4 tomorrow is who do you bring? Do you bring Lascelles back at centre back, which means you've got another pairing to get used to each other. Do you leave Byrne at left back, and then you've got left-sided centre back, so you've got Lascelles and Byrne who haven't played together? Do you take Byrne out after having had a really, really good game, almost man of the match performance? And so do you take him out to move Shea to the left and bring Lascelles in, which is a pairing that's worked before, but is unbalanced. So it's. I think that's a bigger problem for him than wondering who's going to play at right back. Because for me, with Mankillo not fit, we've got one choice. It's Kraft. And I would still rather have Kraft there than Murphy. He's not a right back, he's a winger. Stroke right wing back. That's where he's performed for us. I don't think he's got the defensive nous. Think about the penalty he gave away. Did he give the penalty away at home against West Ham, or was that last season? I can't remember. But either way, that to me is a nonsense decision. We've got somebody who's a international right fullback able to drop straight in there. Yes, he's not Trippier. Who is? We've seen enough from Trippier to know that he's probably not a direct replaceable player. But perhaps it's time we started to trust him. Because if I remember rightly, some of his best games for Newcastle have actually been the ones where he's played as a right fullback in a back four. Because guess what? That's his position.
Yeah, I would agree. You don't put square pegs into round holes unless you're Steve Bruce. Good luck, West Brom. Yes, Steve, it's true, isn't it? Though Bruno's time will come. And all you're hearing from the training ground, we've got our contacts up with the club, and it just sounds as if the guy's just impressing in every single thing he does. And when he does get his chance, I'm sure he'll seize it with both hands.
Yeah, oh, absolutely, and you're absolutely spot on there, Steve. I mean, we're in a situation at the moment where it's somebody's shirt to lose, and it's going to take a poor performance by one of the midfield three or an injury to be able to shift them, and that's a good thing for Eddie Howe. It's a great place for Eddie Howe to be because he's got three players in absolute form, and the fans are exactly the same. Yes, we're itching to see Bruno start, but his time will come, and there will be an injury to someone. I mean, it's inevitable. There may be an injury further up the pitch, and he might suddenly decide to shore up the midfield with four, and that's the nature of football, and that's why you have a squad of 25. We went on and on for long enough about having a weak squad. At the moment, it looks like the squad's strong. The key for me tomorrow is what he does with Trippier not playing, not being fit, as you say, bringing Kraft in, but more importantly, what happens with Lascelles. Now, Lascelles is club captain, he's team captain, and will Eddie Howe just automatically bring him back in if he's fit? I suspect he might. Is that unfair on Byrne or unfair on Shaw? Yes, it probably is. Or we could go the other way and argue, and I'm arguing myself here because I've just said that, the three midfielders are holding the shirt and they deserve it. So maybe Dan Byrne and Shaw deserve the shirt because they're holding it, and Lascelles has to wait and be on the bench. It wasn't an injury, I understand, which was the reason for Lascelles being out. Somebody told me it was a stomach bug or an illness of some description, which meant, it's not as though that you're protecting them and you're thinking, right, well, it's been a calf injury or a thigh injury or a hamstring, and we're gonna ease you back in. But we said it on Wednesday, and I think we said it last week. This is why Eddie Howe gets the big money. This is why he's the manager of the football club. It's not our decision to make. It's our decision. It's our place to talk about the decisions he does make, and then analyze them once it's happened, because we're supporters and we'll all have an opinion on whether he's doing right or wrong. But beforehand, let's just see and. I back exactly what Mitch is saying with regard to Emil Kraft. International footballer, a right back, shoe in for the right back position while Trippier's not there. He doesn't perform, somebody else will come in, it'll be Manquillo when he's fit. And it's up to him to grab the shirt. So happy days.
Yeah, it is. That's what it's all about, and I'm glad it's Eddie Howe has to make them decisions and not us. Okay, we all like to have a laugh, and this guy certainly gives us plenty. At Sless147 on Twitter, give him a follow if you like to have a laugh each day. Certainly makes me giggle, and this was his best one of the week for me. I've just joined a brass band. I keep borrowing everybody else's instruments though. I've never been one to blow my own trumpet. Fantastic. Give him a follow. Always gives me a giggle. Okay, thanks for that, Elliot. As always good to see. Don't forget as well, the members draw is 7 o'clock tonight. And if you are a member, then this is what you get. A cup, a pen, a scarf, a membership card. It's £25 one-off fee. And John from QTech runs this very, very well. And yeah, look, the members draw is for 2 tickets for the Crystal Palace. So tickets are like gold dust at the minute. So John giving away another fantastic prize that will be announced in due course. And we also have our picture quiz, which runs over 4 weeks. So we are at the beginning of a new quiz. And here is the picture.
Oh,
Sabah. Okay, so that's your first one. Write that down. You have to collect all 4 clues, and then you answer a question when we get the 4th one, and you will win a prize at the end of that. And the latest Food Bank T-shirt is this one. If Carlsberg did football club owners, and there we have a picture of me, Dad, Jamie, and our chairman and Amanda, and yeah, a nice black and white special, a one-off, and this one again will be signed by Dad, and who knows, maybe Jamie Rubin. And I've got to say thank you to Jamie. It's not in Tweet of the Week. He didn't have to do that, but he wished me happy birthday. And once again, you know, he got a lot of stick on social media for doing that. But thank you, Jamie, if you're watching, for doing that. You didn't have to, mate, and it was much appreciated. In a pretty poor week, crap week for me, that really did cheer me up. So thanks for that, mate. It did make a big difference. Okay. Also got this question from Terry Hargreaves. Let's dip into this. He goes, just got a question. It's a bit off topic. How can you be honest about being a Freemason? Now, I am doing the show at 7:30. Till 8:30 with Patricia and with Lee Davies, but I will answer this because you might not watch that. You might think I'm avoiding it. You can be honest about being a Freemason because it's all there on the internet now, Terry. It's something I'm immensely proud of. I do a lot of charity work through the Freemasons, and it made me a better person becoming a Freemason. The oaths of silence, yeah, I can't tell you about the handshakes. I can't tell you about the ceremony, but I can tell you what Freemasonry is. And if you want to pop onto the other show at 7:30 or 8:30 with me, Patricia and Lee, we'll maybe even discuss it a bit further. But I never avoid a question about Freemasonry. Don't believe what you hear. It's not about sacrificing goats. It's not about gaining any influence or whatever. If it was, maybe I could have had a word with the Premier League and saved Keith writing a letter. But ultimately, it's nothing very sinister, Terry. Believe you me. I might even do a podcast on it one day.
Steve, can I jump in there as well?
Go for it. Well, you have some knowledge on this.
As well, you know, my dad, and you know the level that my dad's been involved with Freemasonry, and he's always been open and honest about it, always been upfront about it, and never shied away from answering questions on it either. And I think the amount of good that puts into the community massively, there would be a big hole in many of the charitable contributions that we see that go to great causes without that. Now it's a path I've not personally wanted to follow, but that was my decision. So anybody going down the cult route on that one wants to think again. Absolutely, and I think you and my dad could probably do a bloody full podcast on it and then some. But it's never been anything other than a positive thing in our family's life, and I would agree with you 100% on that.
Yeah, lots of goat curry, says Davey. Bearing nipples, says Gary. Yeah, it's all in there. And it's so funny. It's so funny. People's misconception of the whole thing. It's honestly not as sinister as they think. Alan Thompson, I like this question, so we'll go with this, Alan. He goes, with a message Sunderland with their shareholders, they've got 25 owners that nobody knows. That's the new version of that song, by the way. Could the same happen at Newcastle with our consortium regarding decisions like transfers and long-term vision of the club? Neil, you're shaking your head vigorously there.
Because ours have been upfront from day one. And I think this is the thing. If you look at Sunderland's board makeup now, and look at what it was post takeover, this is one of the reasons why me and Steve banged on when it happened. It wasn't a takeover; it was a bailout. It's as simple as that. And it was a bailout dressed up as a takeover. The original board structure that was in place when the takeover happened is very different to the one that's there now, in that most of the Madrox board members have been subsequently removed, but they weren't in the first instance. So you had this 9 board members, which was basically 4 from each party, with the CEO as the casting vote in the middle of it all, and a mess. And it was very definitely decision by committee. Well, that was never a takeover. And even as those Madrox members have been removed, particularly Donald, Methven and Sartori, they still hold a significant shareholding in the club. And all of them have been reported as being on club business within the last 6 months. And that's further smoke and mirrors. How can they be on club business, but they're not on the board, but they hold shares, but they're not on the board, and yet somebody makes more decisions, but the lawyers are on the board from both sides still, and that means somebody's still got input into that board. The red flag should have gone up when Sartori was brought in, and you look at his connections in French football, and you can't tell me that he wasn't instrumental in trying to strike the deal with the so-called majority shareholder, which he isn't. He may have control in shares based on special share decisions, but it's still a mishmash. Why did the Football League take an extra 2 weeks to ratify the takeover after everybody was saying it was done? I'll tell you why, because we can all talk about it now, because there's no confidentiality agreements, because they've blown that out of the water. That was because they wanted reassurance from Donald and Methven and Sartori that they would fulfil their duty as shareholders and put money into the club to the same level as Dreyfus did. This is a club that for a 2-month period, and I got some stick for this from a few people because they said, oh, well, you said this and it didn't happen. Well, no, it didn't happen. It didn't happen because Dreyfus was on the doorstep. And that was the thing not many people knew. For a 2-month period, they were 48 hours from going under. All it would have took was one of the creditors to pull their debts in, and they'd have been in bother. Massive bother. The parachute payments were spent on buying the club, and they still haven't paid back all those parachute payments that they said they would. Sartori has a 20% shareholding in that club, and all he's ever done is take money out. He's not put any money in at all. At all. And so it's a mess. It's a mess that the EFL ratified. It's a mess that the EFL are party to, like they are in so many other takeovers with clubs below the championship in the championship and below. That's why Reading are in trouble at 223% of wages versus turnover. That's why Derby are in the hot that they're in. And Bristol City are now going to go on the embargo list, along with another 6 clubs. And that's the 10 clubs that me and Steve told you about 18 months ago. And all that happened was Project Big Picture give them some cash. And what did we say? It'll just kick the can down the road because nobody's going to change how they're doing anything. Well, guess what? We've just stumbled across the can and we're down the road. And what's happening? Exactly what was going to happen 18 months ago. And this is the problem with the Football League. They're not accountable for the decisions they make that actually end up sending teams down. The Premier League's another beast, but they're just as culpable with things like Burnley's takeover. Leveraged buyouts might be legal, but by God, they're a mess when they go wrong.
Yeah.
And that's why Man U bang on about they're not being happy because of the way the debt structure was with the Glazers initially. You know, and this is all the stuff we've talked about probably over the last 2 years. And sometimes talk a little bit of stick about. And you know what? It doesn't make me any happier that I can sit back here and say, we told you so. In fact, it pisses us off because some of these owners are still involved in football and they shouldn't be anywhere near football clubs. It pisses us off because the Football League have never done anything about it. They've just basically gone to the Premier League with a begging bowl and said, we need some money or else. or else what? You know, and that's 10 clubs in the Championship. What the hell's happening below the Championship, God only knows. And that's why people like Darren McAntony, the owner of Peterborough, gets quite upset about it, because they've tried to do everything properly. There's a number of clubs that have done everything properly. And I say William's story there, dear me, Google him. Google him and his company. Google that so-called sponsorship with Haas, Formula One team, and the mess that was. And you know what? It'll give some of you a bloody good laugh if he does end up owning Sunderland, because they're not just jumping from the frying pan into the fire, they're jumping from the frying pan into the seventh plane of hell. And so, you know, there's so much of a mess going on in football finance at the minute still. And this is just the can that they kicked down the road with Project Big Picture and taking the money off the Premier League, right, Steve?
Absolutely. And I mean, you put it into context. Imagine taking over a company. You found out the company had a boatload of money in the bank. So you take it over and you use the money that the company's got in the bank to buy the company, which is basically what happened at Burnley.
That's Burnley. They use their own money to buy the club.
Burnley's money. I'll take over the football club. What I'll do is, Mitch, I'll take over your company and basically give you all the money that's left in the company, and that's me buying it. What does that do for me? That means that I can then come in and get a nice little earner as the chief executive, and I can start giving money to myself. That's what it's all about. That's why it's getting done.
That's absolutely what Donald did with Sunderland.
Mm-hmm.
And ring-fencing the parachute payments off the Ellis Short to pay for the club.
Yeah.
You know, and they allowed that to happen. Donald bought Sunderland by only putting 5 million of his own money in. That's ridiculous.
The whole William story thing's hilarious, you know. Sorry to interrupt you, but do you remember when
I know you've got connections there. I know you've got connections there, mate. I know.
When I did the Entertainers game, Rich Energy were put in front of me as a potential sponsor, and they're one of the sponsors of the Newcastle strip. I'm not going to say who introduced us to them. I wouldn't want to embarrass them. But ultimately, he turned up with the sponsorship money in a bag.
Mate, fuck's sakes. Right, okay.
In notes and coins. Now this is now this isn't a lie or a joke or whatever. This is serious, and I was actually wondering whether we'd get the money, but we got it. Fair enough, we got it, but it was the way that we got it. I've got to be honest. I met him on a couple of occasions. I went to see him in London. I quite liked the guy. He wanted to get involved in the whole boxing thing. He manages a particular boxer, but he's got a very, very, very interesting history, and I've got to say that I think if he took over Sunderland, it couldn't happen to a nicer club.
Yes. Does the drink actually exist? Because some people are suggesting that the drink doesn't exist.
It exists. I mean, the drink. I got the drink in various bars in Newcastle, but you know, it just all seemed a little bit. It just all seems a little bit weird. I'll never understand.
Because I know there's been questions about the actual product. Full stop. You know,
I mean, he was involved with Formula One again as well. I mean,
the Haas debacle is unbelievable.
Yeah.
If you read the history behind that, that's crazy. I mean, that's sort of Netflix documentary stuff, and there's already been one of them down the road. You know, the second one or the third one will be hilarious. It'll be under comedy. It'll not be under bloody sport.
Kirk 99, I've got to be honest, mate, I'm in the same position now. He doesn't regard Sunderland as rivals.
No.
Why give them status by regarding them as rivals? I mean, you might as well say Dunstan are rivals to Newcastle at the minute.
I had this conversation with Stu the other day, funny enough. When I was a kid, I could tell you Sunderland's first 11. I could tell you who their captain was, and I could tell you a lot about the club. I think one of their first team players could come and sit next to me on the Dubai Metro, and I wouldn't know who the hell he was. And I think that's the most damning thing I could say about where they are. You've heard me talk about my dad going to Sunderland when he was involved with one of the main match sponsors. What days out with Sunderland were always a laugh. Yeah, it was banter and it was wind up and shit like that, but at the same time, it was always good crack. and I've always regarded them as. I've never had the animosity that a lot of people have had with the Mackhams. Never really looked at it the same way. But right now, yeah, we're probably doing them a favour talking about them right now.
Yeah, certainly are, and we're not going to waste any more of the three amigos laughing at Sunderland, I'm afraid. What we are going to do, though, is we're going to go to another one of our regular sections, which is Tweet of the Week. Tweet of the Week, some absolute belters, and it's weird now because I'm now starting to get text off people who would consider themselves your friend, Steve, saying, get Steve Hasty to read this out. Zara sent us this, Steve.
Lad. I'm not a fan of rosé wine at the best of the time. Let's spritz and plenty of what on earth's that? Is that Asda, is it?
Gazella wine. Apparently, it's a light spritz and plenty of spunk in the mouth. Truly refreshing.
Unbelievable. I know it's a shop in Tesco's in Gateshead, but that's pushing it, isn't it? Dear me.
So there we go.
Bit of a salty comment.
You can thank Sarah for that. Roger West, he says, this only as old as you feel, talking about my birthday. Of course, I joined the 5-0 club. He says, they say 40 is the new 30, 50 is the new 40. All I know is the older I get, the more 9 p.m. is the new midnight. Yes, I can certainly agree with that, mate. This one was good as well from Steve. He goes, I once persuaded fans of Sunderland Football Club to repair the stadium for free. Then I pretended to sell the club to someone with money.
Pretends being the operative word.
From what I like to you, of course, that one. I just look, as you know, I like to show some pictures on this show, and I thought that was brilliant by Entire Design. Alan St. Maximin in the Newcastle 1995 away. He would certainly have suited that one, wouldn't he, lads?
That looks fantastic.
Yep, looks apart.
Yeah, it definitely does. This one was from Gary Douglas. He went, Steve, I don't know if you've seen this, Steve, but I think it's absolutely brilliant. Breaking news. In a last-ditch attempt to save their season, Manchester United have dug up the pitch to plant potatoes. That way they'll have something to lift in May.
Brilliant.
Sometimes we do like to go off topic as well. This one was another one of those WhatsApp messages. Baby, we didn't do anything for Valentine's Day. Angry face emoji. Well, I have a surprise for you. But tomorrow, do you like Paris? Yes. 3 emojis with hearts in their eyes. And Madrid? Oh my God, yes. 3 smiling emoji faces. Okay, tomorrow night, Champions League at 8 o'clock. PSG versus Real Madrid, my place. Thumbs up. Classic.
Are always the good ones.
Steve Hasty's made it into Tweet of the Week, and not because it's a lookalike.
Yes. Yeah, when the Shearer statue is relocated, how about installing a few of these around the empty plinth? I think that would be a great idea. But it used to be a bug anyway, didn't it? So it used to be a toilet, so why not replace it and return it?
It did. Alan McKenzie put a picture up of Chris Wood at first, but he got there in the end. Now desperate about Ward Dan. Of course, the size of our new centre-back, he's been rumoured to be a lookalike of Desperate Dan as well, but there's no desperate about him. Fantastic man of the match performance last week. Toon Pools is becoming a bit of a regular on here. Give him a follow on Twitter. Hi, Deli Ali official. Who's the hardest punch? Julian or Wood?
Brilliant.
I did like that. Of course, that was the expert.
Well, my information is that Woods was a headbutt.
All right, okay, there we go. Alleged headbutt. We'll see. Allegedly, yeah. This was a good one as well. Of course, Gary Neville. I do like him as a pundit. I've got to be honest. Didn't like him when he played for Manchester United, but the Sportsman put this out. St James's Park is absolutely rocking again, and Gary Neville is loving every single moment of it. He said, St James's Park is back. I can't hear myself. I think it's absolutely brilliant. I've got goosebumps, actually, because this place has been absolutely depressing for a long time. Great to see Gary Neville. He's the most unbiased Manchester United player who does punditry, and I respect his opinion on most things. I've got to be perfectly honest. This was on Kieran Trippier's Instagram story. Who put these two next to each other? Big Dan Burn and Ryan Fraser, and UFC 360, of course, tweeted that out, which was great. And the imagery of this on Shaw's Twitter was just fantastic, wasn't it? Absolutely fantastic. Yeah, Shaw, brilliant. Big Dan Burn, who both played well together. Dubravka as well, just getting a little huddle there at the end. Another 3 points towards survival. Unity and the team united. That's all we've wanted this season. And boy, are we getting it in the back end of the season. Ian Hull, you're certainly right. I could understand this. He copied us in on this one. He went, if you're under a certain age, let me assure you, this apple pie was served at the surface temperature of the planet Mercury. That was the apple pie that you used to get in McDonald's, which, of course, when you bit into it, used to burn either your top lip or your bottom lip, depending on which one protruded out the furthest. Last couple as well. This one was sent to me by Dennis Devlin. He says, Steve, can you imagine bumping into him? This was Mackham in Mockham. My mate, who was Cornish, is having a stag do in Newcastle, and I warned the lads not to do this. What do you reckon? He had a Sunderland shirt with Shearer 9 on the back.
He became a little bit of a Twitter star over the weekend, going from bar to bar and getting recognised and getting... I think there was a lot of good banter, but that was about it. I think everything was taken in good faith.
Okay, last couple, as I said, this one was another one from Ian Hull. Farmers writing romance novels. Her body tensed and quivered as she felt wave after wave surge through it. Probably should have told her about the new electric fence. Brilliant. Thank you for that, mate. And a couple of bits of humour this week. NUFC Detective, I did like this. The Premier League's new header on Twitter. Newcastle United. Right. Unbelievable, Jeff. Unbelievable.
You think about when they went through a spate where they blocked a load of our fans.
Yeah.
Such a turnaround.
It is a turnaround. This one was fantastic as well. It was great to have
Brilliant.
Jimmy on. Thanks so much for being so accommodating. Enjoyed my time on the show. Keep up the great work. Here's some blue sky for you. Jimmy came on the 5-minute rant. And of course, I don't often do it, but Chris Hall hasn't been too well. Pete was out for Valentine's night, so Holly and I stepped into the breach on Monday, and we had a great collection of callers. Great to speak to Jeff and Alan, and Jimmy came on, first-time caller, bit nervous, but he was sitting in the sun, and he was fantastic. He really was, and he's managed to get up to 400 Twitter followers now, so it'd be great if you could follow him on Twitter. I've just put a tweet out there again today. If you're on Twitter, give him a follow. And let's get him up to 1,000 over the weekend. It'd be great because Jimmy loves the banter. He loves the crack. He's one of those people who enjoys giving you some content on Twitter as well. And it's always upbeat and positive, which is what we like. So well done, Jimmy. And great to see you in the chat again. The tweet of the week, though, again, is Paddy Power. Just think, next year, Mbappe will be coming on for the last 5 minutes as a replacement for Chris Wood. Fantastic. Some great tweets. Keep them coming in, and we'll keep our eyes peeled for next week. You've got about 20 minutes left before you can sit and wait for the drum roll for the competition winner to come in, the members draw. And John will send me that in about 20 minutes and we'll get it up. Don't forget as well, get your last minute bids in for the Trippier t-shirt. You've got about 10 minutes on that. And then this one will be going up on my Twitter account at Steve Wraith. Be pinned at the top and you'll have a week to bid on that. Yes, Mitch, we're going to come to you next before we have our next couple of sections, and you wanting to have a little bit of a rant, Bonnie lad.
Yeah, and I tell you how pissed off I am. I printed something off.
No way!
I've never, ever done this, ever. But something I want to talk about, because what I'm going to read to you, if this had been done with anybody associated with Newcastle United, it would have been all over the news. I think for our guys in the chat today and anybody watching now, this might be the first time you've heard these quotes. Might not be. I would like to know a little bit of feedback about how many of you have heard this week. But this is quotes this week. and it's from Los Angeles, and it's about Phil Mickelson and the Saudi finance breakaway golf league, which could have an impact on Newcastle United because there's talk about the chairman of Saudi Golf joining them on board. And so Los Angeles, even though the Saudi Arabian government has been accused of myriad human rights violations by watchdog groups around the world, Phil Mickelson says he's willing to get involved with the Saudi finance breakaway golf league to have leverage with the PGA Tour. They're scary motherfuckers to get involved with, Mickelson told author Alan Shipnuck, who posted an excerpt of his upcoming book. They killed Khashoggi and have a horrible record on human rights, Mickelson continued. In an interview that Shipnuck said took place in November. They execute people over there for being gay. Knowing all of this, why would I even consider it? Because this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to reshape how the PGA Tour operates. That, ladies and gentlemen, is sports washing. That, ladies and gentlemen, is everything that we as a fan base have been accused of by so many people, that we as a club have been accused of by so many people. Yet I bet so many of you watching now and in the chat and watching back after this, bet it's the first time you've heard it. Why aren't Amnesty International all over that? Why aren't the BBC writing pages and pages and pages and pages on their website about it? Why aren't... Where's Miguel Delaney? Where are you, Miguel? You're a sports journalist, aren't you? Different attitude when you thought Saudi was going to buy Man United in 2018, wasn't it? Are you Phil? Are you like Phil? Are you flexible? Do you want to get your own little bit of leverage over something? Because that is obscene. To come out with that is obscene. Nobody associated with Newcastle United, nobody that I know, not you, Steve, or anybody else associated with our NUFC matters, or actually anybody else I know in our fan base would come out with dross like that. And it needs to be called out. That's wrong. Because that then leads to stuff being thrown to us like we've had this week. A wonderful article in the Athletic about ball being in playtime and should we introduce the 60-minute but the clock stops when it goes out of play. And yet that article was determined to mention who our owners were and talk about Saudi Arabia and talk about human rights and was a dig. And we are getting that every week in one form or another from someone somewhere. There's another so-called sports journalist who's called for any club that gets relegated from the Premier League this season should sue the Premier League and sue Newcastle United. What was his basis for that? His basis for that was we bought players in the transfer window, which last I looked was actually something that was kind of legal and part of the rules. And like we said, when Southampton were coming out with cockamamie shit like, oh, they can't play their new signings in the rearranged fixture. And then Moyes was joining in at West Ham saying, yeah, I think that's a great idea. Why? Because nothing says more than we're not going to sign any players in the transfer window than complaining about teams that are signing players in the transfer window. And neither West Ham nor Southampton did exactly that. And this is the kind of thing that leads... When you see that and it goes under the radar, that's utterly obscene as somebody to say. I don't know anybody associated with our club who's come up with something as crass as that. That's basically saying, I don't give a fuck about what they do, just give us the money. Our fan base has not behaved like that. Our fan base won't be silent on certain things. Like I've said on here before, dead proud of our fan base at certain times because we've actually asked questions. We've gone and said when the club promoted the Rainbow Laces thing, and certain individuals in Saudi, which will happen, we're starting to criticise it. Some of our fan base are jumping in and saying, "Hey, not in our name. That's not what happens here. We're diverse. We are going to take everybody and we accept everybody how they are." And we've done it when the club came out and supported the Australian player who came out as gay. And again, our fans were jumping in saying, no, that's not how this works with Newcastle United. And that's fantastic. When have Geordies ever been quiet about anything? We're never quiet about anything. For God's sakes, we're complaining about the fucking pies sometimes. Right? We have an absolute connection and an ability to ask questions back to Saudi. We've banged out about this before. And yes, we might be just a little drop in the bloody ocean, but we've got an ability to interact and get information back to the ownership, to the people who sit on the board of PIF, and say, this is not how we want this to be in the name of Newcastle United. And I genuinely believe they'll listen, because I genuinely believe it's a two-way interaction. And if anybody associated with Newcastle United come out with crap like that, can you imagine what the reaction would have been? And yet that seems to have gone under the radar with so many so-called sports journalists, while they're writing crap about the fact that we're keeping the ball out of play for longer than anybody else, might keep hoping that's some sort of Saudi conspiracy. Get fucked. Go on. So I'm sorry, language, etc., but that's really pissed me off this week. That when I saw that and I was sent that, I'm like, hang on, why am I reading this for the first time? Because that should be across every back page. The rights and the wrongs about whether Saudi should be having their own golf tour or investing in something PGA led or whatever. That's politics of sport, and they need to get on and sort it out within their own sport. But when you've got people involved with that sport very directly, a name like Phil Mickelson coming out with crap like that, and yet we get accused of all sorts just because we want our football team to not be shit. It's ridiculous. And I've seen the word agenda come up in the chat there, and it now makes it just strengthens that thought. And I try so hard not to be a conspiracy theorist, but yet there's an agenda there that we can't win whatever we do. So maybe it's just time to corral the wagons and get together and support the team and support where we're going as a journey with the new ownership, and screw you.
Steve, your thoughts on that? Mitch has put it across eloquently. A great rant, and rightly so, and a lot of support in the chat. Steve, your thoughts?
Oh, you know what? Absolutely spot on. It's typical, isn't it? It's typical of the way that the press have taken the whole takeover and used it as a stick to hit us with, and they'll not hit anybody else with it. They'll not, Chelsea not get hit with a stick over Abramovich and Ukraine and the Russian problem, all of that, because they'll find a way of deviating away from the conversation. It's not a conversation they want to have, but with this one, it's ignorance, and it's no longer surprising to Newcastle United fans that this is going on. We were concerned that it would happen. We were worried about it. We knew right from day one that there were going to be all sorts of accusations thrown to the fans or at the fans. We had it about what you wear at the match, if you remember, how whether putting a headdress on to celebrate the takeover was right or wrong. All of those type of things, they're all sticks to hit us with. They're all wanting to belittle the fans in Newcastle United, belittle the football club, and gives them the ability to stand there and go, "You're no good. You're not right. There's something wrong with you." It's an absolute scandal, and Mitch is absolutely spot on, and quite rightly, I think he put it over so eloquently and so forcefully. It'll be interesting to see whether or not we do suddenly start to see press starting to pick up on it and starting to question the agendas that are out there. We know that some in the local press have done it to a greater or lesser extent, but there have been local pressmen who have gone the other way, who only see and only listen to what gets written by some of the national sports people, whether it's because they want to keep in with them, because it's a little club and they're all sitting there in the press box and having a chat, and you know, they've been pals for years, and they want to keep that relationship going. And that does happen. It's bound to happen. It's human nature. But to see things like that, and they choose that, those people choose to ignore it. You know, the Oliver Holts of this world choose to ignore it, etc., etc. Then you know, and Mitch has mentioned the other reporters who are choosing to disregard or push it under the carpet. It's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. Our fans are clever enough.
It's super important. We've got to talk about it. We'll have to talk about it. We'll have to talk about it openly and honestly. And there's enough people in our fan base who are quite frankly happy to do that. And better than I, to be fair. Some people ask some amazingly incisive questions about certain situations and how we as a club might be dragged into it. It's very clear to me now, when we were sitting talking 2 years ago about geopolitics and the subtlety of things in the Middle East and why it was important, it's actually way beyond that. Yeah. We're in a situation where now we just can't win. As a fan base, we can't win. And so some of it we've just got to suck up, unfortunately. And it's not worth getting into arguments about it, because it's an argument you can't win sometimes. But equally, there's times where I think we've got to stand our ground. And when I say stuff like that, genuinely pretty much going under the radar. I'm telling you now, if one of our coaches had said something like that, one of our players had said something like that, back page of every tabloid, probably most broadsheets too. BBC would probably have about 6 different pages talking about it in various different parts of their website, and would look stupid. You know, that is pure sports washing. And so when we're accused of sports washing because we're excited, because our club's in a position to grow again, to have hope again, it makes an absolute nonsense of that to me, when that, like I say, and I'm seeing in the chat already how many people didn't and hadn't heard that. Yet that should be on every back page, because that's one of the world's best golfers, one of the world's biggest names, basically saying, give me the oil money, I don't give a F.
Yeah, it is. The screw will be turning as we're going to be standing ahead of the rest, says Tim. Lots of people saying that. The big 6 are digging a bigger hole for themselves, says Derek. Good luck belittling the biggest and richest club on earth. We will have our day, says Ryan. Why don't the Northeast journalists kick up a stink about the agenda against Newcastle? I guess they don't want to rock the boat with colleagues who they have to sit next to. And I wish people would stop calling them the big 6. They are the corrupt 6, says Toon 2020. Stu just says, what do you really think about the subject, Mitch? Once again, over 600, nearly 700 people watching live tonight. You know, I know it's a cold, windy night and you're probably best inside the house, but we never take your support for granted. Thanks, as always, for support and your kind words, as always, in the chat and all your interaction. We try to get through as many comments as we can. No spirits for Mitch tonight. Tinny's only, says Monkey Suit. Yeah, he's on the Grolsch tonight. It's ages. That was a question we used to get all the time.
What's Mitch drinking tonight?
It's the first time we've had that in a long time, so it's good to get it. Okay, on to our next section, and we're going to go a little bit earlier with the Lookalikes section, because we've got the West Ham game obviously to look at and a couple of other things. Bit of variation with the two Lookalikes. Someone even comparing one of our regular viewers who I know is in the chat tonight. So we'll go to that first. Matt Damon and Keith Roll. Keith, you've made it, mate. You've made it.
Hollywood.
He's on here. He's unloaded. But Keith Roll, yes, Matt Damon, and I can see where they're coming from. So there you go. Established actor. This one comes in 2 parts. Yeah, 2 parts. It's this one. So, Newcastle United versus Aston Villa last week. There's a lookalikey there. Can you see it, lads?
Lookalikey.
It's a difficult one.
It is, that one.
Okay, here's the big reveal. Ricky Gervais. And of course, if you look on the floor, this is a habit that people get into of lying somebody behind the wall. Yes, an eagle-eyed viewer says that that's Ricky Gervais. So yeah, I get it. It was good. It was a subtle. That's what I enjoyed, a subtle lookalikey. We're all watching the news with interest, but yeah, this a dog and the man who's looking at trying to invade the Ukraine. I think that's pretty good, Stephen Kennedy. He's got the look of it. Is that his dog? I don't know if that is his dog. But certainly got the look of him. Dogs do tend to look like their owners. It has to be said. This one, happy birthday, he said to me. Obviously, he has a non-league footballer lookalike. The guy who stole Herbert from Colonel Porter's and Toadfish Rebecca from Neighbours. So yes, those of you who know Newcastle well, there's a bar called Colonel Porter's, and there was a large bear removed from there. This guy was clearly or allegedly on the CCTV removing it, and he does look a little bit like a character from Neighbours. So there we go. Good spot that. Why on earth you would have even thought of that, I don't know, but it's a weird that comes into your mind. Tom Dixon has laid off Steve Hasty this week and gone for Mike Ashley, the Big Mac controller from Thomas the Tank Engine, and Rafa Benitez and Rene from Hello Hello.
Brilliant.
Tom, honestly, Tom puts his heart and soul into these. Now, Jeff, as we know, if you watch Monday Night Show, the Rant Show with Pete and Chris, Jeff comes on as a regular caller. I had a great opportunity to speak to him myself. He's gone for a rather subtle lookalike here. This is the Three Amigos. So he's got something special, something for you. We must do some old-fashioned wet contact sometime. He wants to go for a drink, that means. This is just a lookalike, he says, and that must be me, Mitch, and Steve.
Yeah.
Very good. I'm not sure. I think that's you on the end, on the far, right on the end there with the long hair, Steve. Long white hair. Hayden Walton says, Toon lookalike, Adam Driver and Keanu Reeves.
Yeah. Often thought that, mind I.
Yeah, I don't know. Adam Driver's got a potential of looking like somebody else, and I'm not sure who it is. I'll come back to that. Back to that. Not tonight. I'll come back to it. This is a fan who posted a picture of himself and Eddie Howe. James Douglas thought would signed Aubameyang. He says he's a bit of a lookalike for Aubameyang. So Hamid Hassan, you've got a little bit of a look of Aubameyang there, and you did get James's pulses rising, thinking we'd brought in a striker. Goal scorer. 100% marks. Here's a Toon lookalike. Robbie Amell and Eddie Howe.
Right. Who's Robbie Amell?
He must be an actor.
Right.
Is he?
Don't know.
I've got no idea. I've got no idea. It's the wrong colour hair. Probably not the best one. I've got to be perfectly honest. But you put it in, which is fine. Andy Davis is going for a completely different take. A twist on lookalike, Steve. Not so much a lookalike as a soundalike. Newcastle Brune and Newcastle Bruno. I think you've been on a couple of Brunos when you come out with that one, mate. But I'll put it up anyway. There's your shout out. Dan Wolf, is this Gaza or Jody Dentist doing a Shearer celebration in his classic Ronnie Barker glasses?
Brilliant.
Soon to be moved, of course, over the wall and into the right place inside the ground. Stephen Buchan said, I made a thing. Lookalike he was sent by Colour Coats. This is Luke Skywalker with Yoda on his back. And Newcastle celebrating the goal at the weekend with poor Ryan Fraser, who's getting hammered for his height this week. Good things come in little bundles, viewers. Good things come in little bundles. This one was from David Billy Gibson. He says, unless this hasn't been done yet, and to be fair, it's weird, it hasn't. My Toon lookalike for this week is Big Dan Byrne and Dolph Lundgren. Which is, that's pretty good. I like that one. This one, I think, was seen by all of you. Mixed story says Three Amigos lookalike is Stu Penman enjoying the nice weather out there while we all get the storms here.
I still think it looks more like Spenny, mate, but that's...
Spenny's in the chat tonight. He'll have seen that one. Yeah, some people sent me this a couple of times. I feel sorry for Alan being compared to me. I've got to be perfectly honest. I think it can only be the blue shirt that saw the similarity, or the fact that we both got bald heads. I do see Alan quite on a regular basis when we've been out and about and gated, and he's doing all right. He's a good lad, Alan. Got a lot of time for him. Good bloke. Michael Quinn. I keep forgetting Hasty used to play bass in Queen.
First band I ever saw.
Where? Newcastle?
75, City Hall, £2.
£2. Good God.
£2. Jesus.
Alex Neil's been getting some stick. Here he is looking like Steve McFadden, a.k.a. Phil Mitchell in EastEnders. Again, anyone with a bald head is game, as Stu will find out. Too late for this week. Obviously, this was sent last week from Billy Trey. Stu and that bloke who might be going to the Mackhams, who is now at the Mackhams. Neil. So, Stu, I bet he's over the moon being compared to him.
I found his early interviews very interesting. I don't think everything was exactly what's said on the tin when he took the job.
No, I don't think so at all. Definitely not. This one was sent by Steve Hasty.
Yeah.
It's the Jamal Lewis.
Yeah. Jamal Lewis and the lad off EastEnders. I think there's definitely a lookalike there between those.
Definitely, yeah. It's the same hairline. Definitely the same hairline.
Same features, everything. Really good. That should be
this was
one. That was fine.
Well, this was a late shout. Football away days. Didn't realise Steve Wraith was reffing in the EFL, which was pretty good. Yeah, it does actually look like me as well. Looks like me on my rant earlier on. This one was from Sam. Is this Steve Hasty before the three Amigos goes live and makeup is applied?
Oh man, I thought he's getting better. He's getting worse.
No, Sam's sitting in that. Sam's sitting in the house thinking of more. The winner had to be this one from Ian Hull, Jim Dale,
Fantastic.
and Antonio Conte.
Yes,
very good, very good. Yeah. That could almost be his father. Ian. So thank you for that, mate. Keep them coming in. Lookalikes to me, to Steve Hasty, to Mitch. Send them to us on Twitter at Steve Wraith. But get them to us. Put them on the Facebook page, Newcastle NUFC Matters. You can find us on a Facebook page or a Facebook group. Stick them on there. And if they pop up, I will nab them and stick them on the show next week. But that's all of the lookalikes for this week. Great stuff, and it is 7 o'clock, which means the T-shirt, which is on Twitter, I think is finally finished. And let us just see. I'm going to get across there and have a look and see what the final bid was. And the winning bid was £50 from Guy Carr. He's asking if we can get it signed. It hasn't been agreed that, but I'm sure John or Steve or somebody can ask the question. And if we can get it up to the training ground or get it to the club, I'm sure that might be arranged. So leave it with us. We can't guarantee it. It wasn't promised that it would be signed, that one, but we will do our best. So good luck with that. Now it is time for the draw, and it is the members draw. And so if you are an NUFC Matters cult member, make sure you've got your membership card at the ready. Have a look at it, because this is the number that has won 2 tickets to go and see Newcastle United play Crystal Palace. For Jeff. It's Jeff. Is it G. Willicks? That is the winner. So, yeah, well done. You are going to the Crystal Palace game. Well done. Official cult members draw only. And G. Willicks has won 2 tickets to go and see Newcastle play Crystal Palace. Okay, last 25 minutes of the show. As always, we look ahead to the game at the weekend. Newcastle are travelling to London, and it's going to be a nightmare. Let's put it this way, for anybody trying to get down there. This is our 4th visit to the London Stadium. It is a 12:30 kickoff. It starts live on BT Sports at 12:30. 3,000 Newcastle fans will hopefully be making their way there. All tickets are sold out. This is our 5th game at the London Stadium. And bearing in mind as well, we've won 3 out of our previous 4 there. Injury news, well, Matt Ritchie, Callum Wilson were already sidelined. Kieran Trippier now joins them on the sidelines, as does Javier Manquillo, although he won't be missing next week, we don't think. We think he will be available. Matt Targett, of course, is available again for selection. He wasn't allowed to play against Aston Villa last week. Other news from Newcastle United's perspective is that Federico Fernandez is nearing a return to training, and also included in photographs at the ground this week with Jamal Lascelles, Fabian Schär and Paul Dummett. So we've got plenty of options in the back 4. As for West Ham, no news on their lineup, I'm afraid. We do know that Kurt Zouma was withdrawn from the game last week due to illness. We would imagine he will play some part, unless the club are going to take some kind of issue with him playing. Chris Kavanagh is going to referee. Jared Gillett is on VAR, which of course was switched on last week at Newcastle, which did us a big favour. West Ham's last game was against Leicester City. They got an extra time goal to get a 2-2 draw. And as I've mentioned a couple of times this week already, West Ham have won more points away from home than they have won at home this season. So what are chances in this game? Well, let's get the man who can paint a bigger picture for us.
Hello lads, West Ham on Saturday in London. What is one of our actually favorite away games in any season in the Premier League, since we have won 10 times in London at West Ham out of 23 games, our best record against any club in the Premier League. We have also won 10 games away to Tottenham, but this is out of 25 games. Chris Wood also seems to be doing very well against West Ham. He has 7 goals in 9 games in the top flight against them, his best record against any club in the Premier League. We have also won 3 out of the 4 games that we have played at London Stadium, including the 3-2 win last year. So all in all, there are good chances that we can go for the first time 4 wins in a row since 2018, when we did it under Rafa Benitez, when we won consecutively against Southampton, Huddersfield, Leicester away and Arsenal at home. By the way, the last time that we won 3 in a row, back in November 2018, the 4th game was against West Ham away and they managed to beat us. When it comes to free kicks, much has been made of the fact that we have scored in 3 successive games. And the funny thing is that 3 out of our last 5 goals are from direct free kicks, while only 3 of the previous 168 goals in the Premier League were from direct free kicks for the period 2017-2022. Solomon Rondon, Jacob Murphy and John Joe Shelby were the goal scorers. Unfortunately, Kieran Trippier won't be now in the squad and he won't have a chance to become the first player to score from a free kick in 3 successive games. He will remain on a par with Hugo Viana, who also scored from a free kick in 2 successive games back towards the end of the 2002-2003 season, when he scored against West Bromwich in Birmingham. So all in all, we have causes for optimism on Saturday. Let's see what the lads will do for us. Cheers.
Thank you to Toon Statue, Andre, as always. Some great info and plenty food for thought. I think the thing for me is the Chris Wood goal record. He does need a goal, the lad, so hopefully he will be able to continue his fine form against the Hammers. Mitch, interest in this. 5 games unbeaten, 3 wins on the trot. West Ham are in a decent position in the league, but let's face it, this isn't Man City or Liverpool, and Newcastle are on a high.
And for me, I don't care who scores the goals. Don't give a monkeys. As long as we're getting the results, they can come from anywhere. Off of Fabian Schär's ass. I really don't mind. In terms of this fixture, I still struggle to get my head around that they're genuinely talking about West Ham as Champions League place contenders, because I've not seen anything from them this season that makes me concerned, which might sound a little arrogant, but I've seen quite a bit of them, and a couple of weeks ago when I watched Leeds against them, Leeds' work rate absolutely terrified them, and then we outwork rate Leeds, so what have we got to lose? I watched them the other week in the FA Cup against was it Cheltenham they played, and they got away with it genuinely with a last minute and extra time goal. Was what got them. Kidderminster, thank you. Couldn't remember who it was they were playing. By the way, they looked awful. They looked awful, and they had a reasonably strong team out. It was Rice that dug them out of it. So with the mood our squad is in, we've got now to fear. That's for sure. And that I think Bone, the BBC today, funnily enough, were bigging him up for an England place. Yeah, and when did they do that for Callum Wilson when he was banging them in last season? No, they didn't. But London club. He is on form. I think that's quite right, Charlie. He is on form. But we've got a number of players on form as well. And so I think we've got the work rate, the ability, and the players, and a bit of depth there to give them a hard time. They don't play expansive, fantastic football. They do seem to grind results out, though, which is fair enough. But I don't think we'll go there with any lose. And what's the weather going to be like at lunchtime tomorrow? If it's still blowing a hoolie, that's always a leveler in games. And I tell you what, if we've got a back four that's got Kraft, let's say Kraft, Share, and Burn in it, that's a big amount of aerial power at the back, who could also be disturbing at the front. Then you add Joe Linton in, then you add Wood in. That's a lot of big bodies, and I think that could potentially give them a trouble if we can't, if the weather isn't going to allow a certain type of play. So I think there's plenty of positives there to look at. Defensively, they're not much shakes to me. I think, again, if St. Maximin has one of these days where he decides he's fully switched on, I don't see their fullbacks coping with that very well. And so, I go into it with a bit of hope. I would love to see we at least get a draw out of it. If we get a draw tomorrow, I'll be happy. I think take a point away from home, and the form we're in at the minute keeps the run going, keeps everything ticking on in terms of the league table, but also it means we remain unbeaten. And I don't think that's an unreasonable thought.
Steve, it's great, isn't it, to be able to speak like this? I mean, we've got ourselves back in the driving seat when 3 weeks ago we were doom and gloom and where's the wins coming from? But, now we've won 3 in a row. We'll go to West Ham on a high, and it's a happy hunting ground. And a lot of people talking about ASM potentially getting a goal. West Ham fans are worried. I've spoken to a few. I know a few of the lads down there, and they are worried about playing this. They're worried about Wood. They're worried about ASM. It's a great position to be in.
Oh, absolutely. As a Newcastle fan, what's really excited me is we're actually scoring goals from set pieces as well. I mean, we had a history of set piece players. I mean, Viana was mentioned there before. Lauren Rebecca would take a great free kick. Nobby Solano, Alan Shearer. In the past, some excellent exponents of dead ball situations. The last 3, we seem to lose that sort of ability. We didn't seem to get the rub of the green. We had players that I don't know whether it was the ball, I don't know what it was, but we weren't scoring many set piece goals. We've had a set piece from Shelby. We've had 2 set piece goals from free kicks outside the box, and that's what ASM's bringing us. He's bringing us and Willock on Sunday, running with the ball, and you get to a situation where all they can do is bring you down because they're frightened of what can happen next. But now that they've got that extra component in the game or in the squad of people who can score set pieces, that in itself brings an added dimension and a little bit more fear to the opposition. Yes, they've got some great players. I mean, and are they punching above their weight? Probably, but there's nothing wrong with that. We've said for a long time that the so-called Big Six needed to be broken up. Wolves are there or thereabouts, shaking the trees. We saw Leicester do it for a couple of seasons. Now we've got West Ham. Aston Villa has aspirations to do it as well, and it's all good. And obviously ourselves, get out of this situation and start afresh next season with a whole new level of confidence about us. So I'm really, really looking forward to the game. I think it will be there will be goals in this. I have a feeling, and you mentioned it there about the fact that we've played really, really well down at the London Arena or whatever they call it. I don't know. It's had that many changes. The Olympic Stadium or the Olympic Arena, God knows what. But for me, this is an opportunity for us to keep the momentum going, and I see no reason why we can't pick up 3 points. And I'm going for a 3-2 win. I said it in midweek. I think we can get a 3-2 win. I think we can get goals. I think Wood certainly has a goal in him, and it's kind of getting the monkey off your back, isn't it? If he manages to get that goal, because I think he's one of those players. Once he starts, he'll then hit 2 or 3 on the bounce as well. So I'm really excited about the game. Concerned about the weather. Hope everybody is safe travelling down. Hope everybody who wants to get there gets there. Hope the squad get there. That we've seen an awful lot of to and fro today. We're hearing that they were going by bus. We've heard they were flying down. We've heard planes have come back. There's been all sorts of stuff flying around on social media. Don't know what the situation is. Just hope that everybody who travels down does so safely. Look after yourself. Enjoy the game and get home safely. That's what the most important thing. So yes, come on, Newcastle.
Yeah, 3-2 win for Steve. I'm going for a 2-2 draw. I'm not going to change my mind. I think what I've heard and what I've seen, and I'm going to give West Ham the respect that that they've earned this season. But they're shaky at the back. They're not the greatest midfield. They've got a threat up front. I think there'll be goals. I think Chris Wood will get it. I think Chris Wood and ASM. Yeah, I fancy both of them tomorrow. It's going to be interesting. I think there will be goals, but 2-2 is what I'm going to go for. Mitch, now you made your prediction, but I believe the dice is going to make a reappearance tonight.
We have it. Well, I'll come up with
2-0
West Ham 0, Newcastle 2.
Fantastic. Well, I would settle for that 100%. It would be fantastic. It's going to be interesting. Just finishing off, do you think Lascelles will play a part tomorrow? I mean, let's, just going into the realms of guessing what he's going to do. I don't think Howe's one for making drastic changes. Don't think anything
from the bench.
Yeah,
possibly from the bench. I think if we look like we need a little bit more muscle, depends on how Antonio plays, I guess.
Yeah.
But I think the way he'll make an impact tomorrow would be from the bench. I get the distinct impression Howe's not one for tinkering. If it works, and leave it alone. Yeah.
Okay, Steve, what do you reckon? Do you think you leave it as Fabian Schär and Big Dan Burn in the middle?
I have a feeling Lascelles will come straight back in. I just have this feeling that he'll be straight back in, and Dan Burn will be on the bench. I don't know why. I just feel as though with him being the club captain and with Trippier not being available, I just have this feeling that that's what he'll do. But let's see.
I think he'll go with Lascelles. I think he'll go with Lascelles and Big Dan Burn, and he'll either play Schär at right back, or he'll drop Schär and he'll play Kraft at right back. That's what I think he'll do. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Tomorrow morning, I do have a show, but as I say, it won't be live. I've pre-recorded it with Mick. It's a great show. Mick is gradually getting better, recovering. As we all know, he's had a horrendous time. But please, if you wanted something different, tune into this tonight. It's the News of the World program that I co-host now with Patricia Devlin and Lee Davies. Something completely different. Tonight, we're going to be looking at the problems in the Ukraine. We're going to be looking at Prince Andrew. We're going to be looking at should you ban meat at schools? We've got so many topics. We're going to be talking about a lot of different subjects in an hour, and we want your input. We want you to come on and tell us what you think about what's going on in the world today. We'll be talking about Storm Eunice. Tell us whether you've been hit with that, what's been going on. But yeah, it's a 1 hour show, current affairs show that we do each week now, and the last 2 shows have been a lot of fun. So jump on, come on. It's something a bit different. It's only an hour, 7:30 to 8:30. Better than watching the telly, and have a little bit of a debate about something other than football. We could talk a little bit about football as well, but if you want to, come on and join us on there. Julie, I know you said don't do it because we've had so many of these this week, but I've always got one ready. I've always got 2 this week, actually. This one was off Facebook, and poor Alan has been linked to me again. A massive happy birthday to the man who got the takeover through. Keep thinking about how we would still have Fat Mike if it wasn't for him. Happy birthday, Steve Wraith. Leave Alan Barnes alone. There's nothing wrong with the guy. He's a top bloke. And again, more trolling. Facebook, Twitter, just ridiculous. And this one, Gaz Tone said, Steve Wraith blocks people for no reason. Pass it on. Thanks to Sarah, she went, I would, but I'm not 10. Fantastic comeback, Sarah. Thanks for that. Putting them in that place. Great show, as always. Steve Hasty, Mitch, thanks for keeping us company. Thanks for all the kind words in the chat. Have a great weekend. Let's hope that we can get 3 points, and I'll see you guys for Geordie's here, Geordie's there next Wednesday. Take care. Have a good weekend, lads.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, everyone.
Critics attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again. But it's